Welcome back to the Leadership Blueprint Growth Podcast. Today's guest is Julie Johnson. Julie is a communication, leadership, and engagement expert with over 2 decades of experience working with advisors, executives, and leadership teams across some of the most respected institutions in the world. She's the founder of XY Communication and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, known for helping leaders build trust, retention, and real connections across generations and teams, especially in high stakes environments. Everyone, please welcome Julie Johnson. Julie, you've spent decades working at the intersection of communication, trust, and leadership. When you look back, what do you think people consistently misunderstood about good communication early in your career?
Wow, you got a few days to go through that? And no, I'm joking. Hi, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me. So, I started my career as a financial advisor with Smith Barney, and you were sweet to say over 20 years. It's actually close to 30 years now. And started in a career at that point in time where I was literally one of two female financial advisors in an almost 200 financial advisor office. And so a lot of it is learning how to navigate working with men, working with a lot of ego, a lot of alpha, and getting them to understand. And this is now I've gleaned this into the future, now with different generations, different genders, etc, figuring out how to get other people to understand your perspective of how you go about doing things without seeming rude or seeming like you're telling them that their way is wrong. And we'll get into that further. But that's probably one of the biggest things, back then it was their way or the highway, right? And I, being also a Gen X person, I was raised to sit and wait to speak until I was spoken to.
Hmm.
The younger generations are not that way anymore because it's not how they were raised. And so it's learning how to integrate for leadership, team builders, what have you, if you're trying to recruit and or work with younger people. That's a lot of what I bring to the table too, is it's making sure that while we're staying authentic to our own communication styles, we are learning more about other people's communication styles, perspectives, and experience so that we're able to relate things to their perspective so it resonates with them as well. So that's kind of a bigger 30,000-foot view, I guess, version of what I hope to really help people with. And the thing that's cool about it, Jordan, is you can put it into business development, you can put it into leadership, you can put it into human resources, you can put it into literally any business environment out there.
Julie, dealing with 198 men in the financial institute you're working with, when you initially started that role in dealing with all those egos, was that a bit of a challenge for you? And if it was, please describe. Or if you feel like it wasn't a challenge for you, also please describe.
Why not? So a little bit of both. I had the benefit of being raised. I'm the youngest of five kids and a very alpha male dominant family. So I was raised having to learn how to navigate that scenario. So getting into the financial advisory space, maybe I was a little bit ahead of the game. I certainly think I had maybe a little bit more of a thicker skin. I didn't take the banter, the remarks, any of the stuff too seriously, too personally, and that served me well.
Hmm.
As we have come forward into a day and age which is appropriate, in my opinion, of more political correctness. What's nice is I can work with any age group and be very comfortable with whatever their style of communication is and help them to, so the old boys club, right? I work with a number of senior leaders who are older and they're used to certain levels of communication, certain banter, and they've been told that they necessarily shouldn't do that as much as they do or speak a certain way. And they're like, all right, how do I change these habits? And we're able to get into how to go about doing that. And then vice versa, it's helping younger people and or women perhaps understand the perspectives of the more senior people. And I'm putting people in buckets. I don't mean to, but this is based on statistics, right? In my own experience, helping women and younger people understand where maybe the more senior people are coming from, why they speak the way they do, not to take it personally, do the best you can not to be offended. Of course, there's lines, right? There's lines. Um, but just to put things in perspective and to have a reciprocal communication and a reciprocal respect, which again, we can dive into that more deeply as well. But to answer your question, I was able to navigate it perhaps better than some, but it was a daily challenge slash daily opportunity.
I like that opportunity. Great word. For me, from my experience, it's almost as if the sure older generation that you're describing, that's how you gain respect is by bantering with them. And if you don't banter with them, they, view you as less. But that's fine. That's just that generation.
It is.
So take me back to '07. You described being the only female partner on a $2 billion AUM or assets under management team. What did that season teach you about voice, not just leadership?
Such a good question. So, for better or worse, it took me receiving a few accolades and, winning a few awards before people really started to take me seriously. And it also, imposter syndrome, right? So many of us experience imposter syndrome. I still do.
Yes, me
And
too.
right? I mean, I would say, Jordan, anybody who says that they don't, on occasion, I bet every single one of us has to some degree, right? And owning it isn't weakness or anything like that. It's learning how to embrace it and move beyond it.
Mm.
So my imposter syndrome, when I started winning Barron's Awards, Forbes Awards, things like that, they asked me if I wanted to speak at some of the national conferences. And holy crap, did my imposter syndrome voices come screaming. So, you do what you can to control it. You go, you do your due diligence, you study, you take the courses, you practice, and you make sure you know your audience and you make sure that you're talking about something that they care about, right? Because what you have to say is a very minuscule part of it. What they want to hear about is really the real deal. And so, what is my perspective? What value can I bring to what they want to hear about? And I learned that pretty quickly. And it actually, they kept asking me back, Jordan. So I must have figured something out. Number one. Number two, I realized from my clients, I was winning awards for receiving and closing the most referrals. I realized that what I was doing, I was, before emotional intelligence became popular, I was a, I was a pretty emotionally intelligent person, especially with my clients. They felt heard, they felt understood, respected, empathized with, all of those things. And many of the advisors back in that day were still super transactional, right? And so, I realized that just because my way of doing business was different than a majority of the people I was working with, it didn't mean it was wrong, right? It was just different. And so when I work with executives today, people of all levels today, just because what you're wanting to do is different, if it serves the people that you're working with well, different isn't necessarily bad. It
Mm.
could be better, right? So being curious about different perspectives, being curious about, again, how to best serve the people you're working with. Again, whether it's, maybe rubs a few people the wrong way, but then being ready to explain in words that resonate with whomever might be criticizing you or maybe senior managers that may be like, what are you doing? Being ready to explain in a non-defensive manner why your way works. And again, not, hey, Mr. or Miss Manager, your way is wrong, my way is right. Our ways are different, but here's why my way is working.
Yeah, processes excuse me, one process is not going to work for two completely different individuals. And if route A can work exceptionally well for person A and route B can work exceptionally well for person B, as long as you're not breaking any laws, the process gets done. Who kind of cares how it gets done? I just want the end result, you know?
Right. Couldn't agree more. And that is one of the bit when I work with teams or organizations, that's one of the biggest challenges I find that they have is certain people are like, why can't you just do it my way? And other people are like, well, because younger versus less senior, to be politically correct. Maybe sometimes the less senior people are like, well, your way is antiquated. You know, cold calling, as an example, a lot of advisors still think cold calling works. Not so much, right?
Mm.
And so, but what are other ways that we can still do business development that does work? And so it's at the end of the day, it's coming down to the discussion of help me understand why my way of doing it is frustrating you. A, let's talk about that. And B, because I want to understand and respect what you do and your perspective. Yet I also want you to understand why the way I'm doing it is more authentic and feels better for me. And if it still accomplishes and achieves greatly the end result that we want, why does it matter if it's different? Like you said, as long as it's, compliance friendly, not making anybody upset or in trouble. Different is not bad. As long as it's accomplishing and serving the people, bring it on.
In your experience, do you feel like leaders at a certain level are somewhat control freaks?
Well, yeah. And respectfully, there's a lot of ego, right?
Yes.
So some of it is getting out of our own way long enough to hear the perspective of the other party well enough to understand maybe they've got a great idea, right? And so the deliverer of that message to leadership needs to understand if you're trying to advocate for a change or you're trying to advocate for something to leadership. Yes, you want to do it in your own authentic, confident language, but you also need to use vernacular and language that is going to resonate with them, right? And you position it as a win-win for all involved. If you do that, your chances of getting what you're asking for, whatever that is, go up exponentially. Put it in a perspective and in words that will resonate and connect with them.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in win-win situations. If one side feels like they're losing, it's not going to work well in the
No,
long run.
negotiations 101.
Yeah, I do have a quick question or a follow-up question on that matter. How do you suggest a leadership team conducts that meeting to get feedback from the employees or their staff about specific processes?
Sure. So oftentimes it's great to bring in a third party to sort of navigate the meeting because for whatever reason, when you bring in a third party, everyone feels a little bit less defensive and everyone feels like, okay, this is an open forum for discussion, right? No one's in trouble. No one's saying they're right. No one's saying they're wrong. It's an open forum for discussion. And then you of course, so when you're preparing for that meeting, if you were to bring in a third party, such as myself, then I would start with leadership, find out what's going well, what's not going well, what their perspectives are as far as what they would like to change, and maybe an indication of who's doing well, who's having some struggles from their perspective, right? And then I and other people that do what I do then go in and have the conversations with the other team members as well. Clean slate, though, right? I don't go in with any preconceived assumptions based upon what the leadership has shared with me. Plus, everything always remains confidential, too, right? But if you go in and you're curious, you do discovery questions, you ask a ton of questions. And the irony is 8 times out of 10, the perspective, once I've had the conversation from, the various team members, it's often very similar results in the sense that 8 times out of 10, it's just poor communication,
Mm.
right? So there's a breakdown in communication and not pointing fingers. It's often from more than one person, right? It's both parties or multiple parties. So what I do when I come in and I have a team meeting, I have leadership set the stage. I've already met with everyone, so they know who I am. There's trust that has been built. They know that this is an open forum. I'm advocating for each and every one of them as an individual, as well as them as a combined team. And then so leadership sets the stage. We've agreed beforehand on a couple questions and or discussion items that each party is going to have an opportunity to share their thoughts with no interruptions, no good or bad. No, it's just an open forum for discussion. You keep tabs on time, right? You don't want one party to talk for 20 minutes and then all of a sudden it's over and, three people didn't even get to talk. But there's ways to go through this so everybody feels heard, everybody feels respected, nobody feels judged by something that they've said. And then I get teased sometimes when I say this, but it's kind of like business therapy, right? It's business group therapy. It really is.
You are exact. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yes,
there's
it
nothing wrong with
is.
that, right? Therapy's around and successful for a reason.
It's what you said at the very beginning. It's bringing in that outside source, that third party opinion to neutralize everything. We can call it therapy, but it's just a philosophy that we use.
Moderation, it's just
Thank
discussion.
thank you.
Yeah, it's just no, you're exactly right. And it just again, it literally you can feel the comfort level of everyone in the room. Everyone kind of takes a breath. Everyone relaxes a little bit. And that's it. And it's palpable. And that's what you want, right? And leadership is, I share with them, hey, this is a group effort. We've all got to own our mistakes. We've all got to work to improve. And we need to be open to new ideas.
Have to be.
Yeah, and honestly, people need to be coachable. Yes, do
Mm,
they feel respected and maybe understood, their perspectives and experience understood and respected? Yes, but it doesn't mean that an evolution can't occur or shouldn't occur. So it's just open forum discussion, not right or wrong, good or bad, just viewing and listening to different perspectives, figuring out together better efficiencies, better ways of getting things done, better communication.
absolutely. Can you describe in detail one of the frameworks or methods that you would utilize when working with an organization?
Absolutely. So what I always start with, I'm honored to be certified in a couple of different assessments. There's so many different wonderful assessments out there. There's Clifton's Know Your Strengths, there's DISC, there's so many, right? One that is a favorite of mine that I'm certified in was put together by some pretty an eclectic group of people, but very well-known people. Ariana Huffington, Adam Grant from Harvard, Ray Dalio, and Brian Little. And this group of people, it's called Principles U. And it is an assessment that, again, like many of them, it takes 30 minutes. If you take it through me, it's free. And what it gives people is the results show characteristics and traits. But what I love is it does it far more in the wording it uses is really excellent for a business environment, a team environment. And it talks very specifically about, Julie is an extroverted introvert. So she appreciates receiving feedback in this way. She appreciates receiving communication in this way. Does she need an attaboy every once in a while? Absolutely. And it talks about she will be successful in these types of roles and she may not be the, hit the ground 100 dials a day, type person. That might not be her authentic way to be successful, but this other way is.
Mm,
Right? So, I mean, the vast knowledge of information that is gleaned from this report and from me being taught how to read it. And then you combine, so you start with that, right? Because you can have conversations with a person and still not truly know who they are as an authentic human being. So this report helps. So that's step number one. Step number two, I work with them, takes maybe 30 minutes after they've done their report, the assessment, and I ask them some questions and I determine whether it's leadership, team members, what have you, what is their authentic, confident voice? How does their brain work? How do they best like to communicate? How do they best like to receive communication? And it could be tasks, it could be emails, it could be whatever, right? And then I do the same with their team. And very quickly, I'm able to establish okay, this probably really pisses you off, doesn't it? Here's a really simple fix. If this party emailed you in this way, bullets versus long form, or didn't email you but sent you a text, or, I mean, there's so many different variances, but you figure out things really, really quickly. And both parties are able to understand why the parties are different and why one form of communication works for this person and it doesn't work for this person and how to tweak it simply so that everyone communicates better. I mean, literally, for a Fortune 50 CEO that I worked with, all he had to do was add please and thank you. I'm not joking. He would send out emails, tasks, what have you, and he never said please or thank you.
Mm.
And I'm like, I guarantee you, sir, you add please and thank you, the engagement, the efficiency, the happiness of your people, the way things get done, it will grow exponentially. And it did.
That is very interesting because I used to date a girl that went to Stanford, whatever. Her professor, pretty well known guy, his name was Scott Delp, at least in her field. He would always add please and thank you. Even if it didn't make any sense to add please and thank you, he just did it anyways. And she didn't call him out on it, but she brought it to my attention. She's like, Scott Delp always says please and thank you. Like, read this message. It makes no sense to say it here, but he said it anyways. I'm like, I don't know.
It
But
works.
exactly. So
It
he
works.
probably,
It makes people feel appreciated.
yeah,
And
100%.
that just is it's a mindset thing. It's a brain thing and an emotional thing. It works. And it's so simple, right?
100% to add, a few extra characters if you're texting someone, or an email. I find it to be extremely fascinating. The more that we know ourselves, the more that we can understand others. And we can start to recognize I'm different. I like things this way. This person likes things another way. And this is essentially why I started this podcast is because I'm obsessed with what makes people tick, human behavior, behavioral science. If you want to elaborate more on that specific framework, that's totally fine. Or I have a follow-up question is when utilizing these frameworks, do you have a success story that you would love to share in regards to how that impacted the team?
Both. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
So, first, again, you are so spot on. People, when they figure out and take the time to figure out a little bit more about who they are, we all make assumptions. We're like, I know this, I know that. There are interesting things that a third party might be able to glean from you because they're objective, right? And again, it's not good or bad. It's just it is what you are. And so, to your point, by knowing ourselves as well as we can, it enables us to be more confident as long as we become comfortable with our authenticity, right? We're going to need to tweak it when we meet with people, we're reporting to them, or, we want to be careful and be mindful of how we communicate with them, right? Which is just smart.
You're right.
Right? If we know that we're boisterous and we're meeting with somebody who or we're, extroverted and we're meeting with someone that we know is more introverted, we want to be mindful of that as we go into the conversation and perhaps slow our pace, slow our cadence, maybe turn down the volume a little bit, be a little bit more relaxed in our demeanor 'cause it's gonna make that person feel more comfortable. It's all about mirroring your audience.
On that topic, sorry, I recently learned that we have something cellular about mirror neurons, mirror cells. That's why we kind of like if someone is smiling, we're gonna naturally smile back, and that's like a DNA science thing. I'm like, oh, that makes
And true.
sense.
Well, and that's why in meetings, in sales, in anything, if you read the room, you've got to read the room, right? You've got to get a sense of body language, facial expressions, and try to connect with the people. And some of that is a gift of just knowledge. You can study it. There's so much on ChatGPT. There's so much out there that you can study to learn, okay, if this person has this, presence, how do I lift them up? How do I connect with them? How do I whatever, right? And that's why also discovery is so important. Asking questions, being curious about someone. If you're going into to meet with someone that you've never met before, talked to before, look them up on LinkedIn
Mm,
or, some kind of social media, right? Look them up. You can get a you can glean a lot about their personality from their social presence. And then to answer your question, I was very honored to work with a large group of regional executives within a Fortune 50 company. And so there were three regions demographically. Uh, domestically, not demographically, domestically. There were three regions and there were three leaders that all had anywhere from 10 to 15 people that worked with them. What we did was we took the time to figure out, okay, this region is very successful. This region is not successful at all. And
mm,
this region is medium, right? We determined, why is one region super successful? Of course, communication, reciprocal respect. That particular leader was really good at motivating and engaging their team. The medium one was, he was still showed them a great deal of respect and he was pretty motivating, but he didn't take the time to get to know each of the individual people.
mm,
And especially as demographics are changing, more women are coming into the executive workforce, more younger people are coming into the executive workforce. They are different in their personalities. They are different in what they want from their bosses. Not all of them want a bigger paycheck and a nice title. They may want more time off. They may want more recognition. They may want more feedback. You've got to ask, what is it that motivates you? What is it that makes you happy? Right. And then by asking those questions, which again are so simple, you're like, oh, this person actually cares about me as an individual and what I want. I'm not just another number to them. I'm not just another producer. Right. And then the person who was least successful with their production and their team was a woman. I shouldn't say interestingly enough, and she was raised in a military family and was very much my way or the highway.
yep.
And numbers, what have you done for me lately? Could care less about her team members. And I mean, these are very high up executive people at a very large company. And fortunately, she was coachable. And even though she didn't understand why she couldn't just dictate to her team what to do and what not to do, she realized once she started seeing some palpable results that tweaking you know, ask questions instead of telling them what to do. This is how I think you should do this. What do you think? Or this has worked for me before. What's worked for you? And it's more of a reciprocal conversation as opposed to a dictatorial, do it this way, just get it done. And so it's fascinating and so rewarding and so much fun to see the work that I do, that consultants do, coaches do, what have you, when it really works, because we get into the human side of it, right? We're all human. We all have feelings. There's going to be certain things that's going to make us mad that may not make someone else mad. But so it's just learning, it doesn't require a ton of extra time. And in the end, it saves time and it makes everyone far more successful, far more engaged. Gallup had yet another study. Gallup and Korn Ferry had another study. I'm a statistics dork, Jordan. I read all the time. but they had, about disengagement, right? So many employees are more and more disengaged. They're citing that employee disengagement is where it was back in 2020, which was atrocious. And so much of it is because leadership doesn't understand or take the time to understand their younger workforce. They're different. So you just have to take the time to find out who they are, what they want and need from you.
You said a lot of very interesting things, and I'm going to do my best to articulate this. So, when you are in a leadership position, you naturally have influence. The question is, how much influence do you have, and in which direction are you influencing them, up or down? You brought up having a curiosity mindset and understanding what makes my employees tick, what motivates them, kind of going back to behavioral science. And if you are in a position of leadership and you want to get the most out of your team, you should probably understand how they operate so you can have more influence in a upward trajectory, right? It's just so interesting how it all comes back to not the therapy side, but the science side. And
Yeah.
I think it's vitally important that is not well discussed or well known. So I really do appreciate you, being here and discussing this with us.
Well, and so much of this you would think would be table stakes. It would be assumed and known by people, especially people who are in leadership positions. But I work with another very large organization and they just have a bunch of yes people, Kool-Aid drinkers that are doing whatever their most senior leadership wants them to do. And the people that work for them are frustrated because anyway, they don't feel advocated for, right? They don't feel like they can trust their management.
So, Julie, you've worked with elite institutions like UBS, Morgan Stanley, and Schwab. What separates advisors who retain trust long term from those who slowly lose it?
Great question. And this is the case, Jordan, whether you're a best in state, best in country advisor or a solopreneur, right? It really doesn't matter. We must get to know, again, it comes back to engaging with each individual human being. And so people are like, well, tell me 3 ways to better engage with my clients, which I can do. Yet what is even better is I'll sign an NDA. Tell me about your clients one by one, family by family, household by household, business by business, whatever it is, because I want to know their personalities. I want to know their mindsets, what makes them thrive. Because
Right.
then, Mr. or Miss Advisor, Mr. or Miss Leader, then I can help you really devise communication that is going to resonate with them, make them know you have their back. The trust is there, the loyalty is there. A couple specific things that are very much out there right now. So in the financial industry, as an example, there's something going on right now that we all have heard of called the Great Wealth Transfer, right? So, especially women and people under the age of 55 are inheriting, dependent upon what source you go to, but trillions and trillions of dollars, right? And why does it matter? So, and again, I'm using statistics and buckets. Do your due diligence, ask questions, don't make assumptions. But from a big picture, bucket perspective, respectfully, older men tended to care more about performance. Is my portfolio beating the S&P by 50 basis points or not? Women and younger people, however, are different. They want to know, am I safe? Is my future safe? And is my family safe? Have you helped me, Mr. or Miss Advisor, think through and plan for the unplanned? Have you helped me, make sure that my taxes are in the right place, make sure that my insurance is where it should be, make sure my estate planning is where it should be? Not that the financial advisor per se is doing all of those things, but they are communicating with the team, whether they're internal or external, they're communicating with the team of people that is taking care of the total financial picture for this family. They want a quarterback. So women and younger people want to have to make only one phone call as opposed to 6. Okay. They want simplicity. They want as many assets aggregated under one roof as possible. Again, not everyone, but many. And it's not because they're any less smart.
Mm,
It's just because that's where they choose to spend their time. They want to focus on what they want to focus on. And it's not six different, financial relationships or, different investments in four different places or what have you. They want it aggregated. They want it simple. They want to know that one person knows the bigger picture of what's going on and that they've got a team of people thinking through all of their needs. If you and that you're taking the time to build a relationship with the spouse, and the reason why I say spouse and or wife is because we know statistically speaking, women outlive their spouses by an average of 7 years. So the likelihood of eventually you working with the wife is highly likely, so you better do your due diligence and figure out how to engage and build a separate independent relationship with her.
mm,
Okay. Not to exclude the husband, but in addition to. You want to take the time to know her, to talk about what she wants to talk about. And also, women are often the gateway to the families. The wives and mothers are often the gateway to the families. You take care and have a great relationship with the mom, they're more likely to have a very open dialogue and say, yes, you should work with this advisor because they've taken great care of me and your dad. And a lot of advisors are like, well, why do I want to work with the families? They don't have any assets, therefore they can't pay me. Respectfully, that's a very short sighted view. From a business perspective, sure, I get it. But there are ways to build communication and build relationships with the family members even before they have the assets by setting up, you know, once a quarter Zoom calls. And if the family doesn't want to talk about their wealth, fine. You talk to the kids about mortgages, what things that are going on in the financial markets. Talk about what they want to talk about. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it builds the relationships. Um, so to go back to your question, Jordan, the advisors that are successful are building relationships with the entire family and in a very authentic way, right? That connects with each of the family members. And often they don't have to have a team of people, but it sure as heck helps. And they are more and more starting to have a more diverse team, meaning they have women, potentially people of color. And I hope nobody gets mad at me for saying this, but if you study the generations, they look for teams that have diversity. They look for teams that is not respectfully just one old white guy and maybe a female sales assistant. I don't
mm.
hope nobody yells at me for saying that, but the facts are what the facts are.
Exactly.
So those are the people who last. And there are ways to make it work that don't cost a fortune.
Great insights. Thank you so much for that. I do kind of want to talk about future trends. So, with generations changing, it's so interesting because you said the older generation is all results driven, results oriented, pedal to the metal. I tend to be that way. However, I'm realizing that there might be a better way.
Again, it's not better, right? It's not better or worse. It's different.
Thank you for correcting me because you're correct on that. So I want to ask, where do you foresee, the next 5, 10 years of leadership and change happening in that sector of life, if that makes sense, in that sector of the world?
Absolutely. So again, going back to leaders who are going to be successful, they are going to set themselves up to efficiently understand and engage with the people who work for them, the people that they hire, the people that they go out and do business development with, right? Because again, the generations are different. Younger people want different things. So you've got to do your due diligence, ask the discovery questions, do not make assumptions. You are old, you're 35. I bet you have kids and want to hear about 529 plans or this or that or the other thing. Or I bet, if I give you a 10% raise, that's going to keep you and make you happy. You cannot make assumptions. You, Jordan, there is absolute if I hear one more person call people under the age of 40 entitled, I'm gonna yell.
Does the world think that we're entitled?
A lot if you read summaries and synopses of younger generations, one of the words I see all the time is entitled, and it makes me so mad because they're not entitled. You're not entitled. You want to be heard and you want to be respected and you want a vote. And if you don't have the opportunity to feel those things or have those things, you're going to get kind of pissed off and you may get disengaged at work, you may quit, etc. Right? You're
Very,
not going to
very true.
put up with it. You're not. And the younger generation doesn't. So it is equal. It is, and I'm not saying it's all the job of the more senior people. That's not fair. But however, I am saying it is the job of the more senior people to get to know what does motivate their younger workforce, what does get them excited, what does get them engaged and more efficient. Okay. And if they don't, that's on them. Easy for me to say. And then equally though, Jordan, it is the younger generation's responsibility if they have a job that they do like and want to stay at, but there's just a disconnection somewhere, then it is up to the younger person to advocate for change as well. How do you do that and not just get slapped? Not literally, obviously.
No, right, right. That's funny though.
So you figure out, okay, choose your battles, right? What do you really want? What really matters and what isn't a deal breaker? Okay. And then you lay that out in a very succinct fashion that is clear and defined. And if it is different than what you are what you are getting now, maybe it's feedback, maybe it's meetings, maybe it is pay, maybe it's time off. What you must do is if you're not getting what you want right now, present solutions that are a win-win. Don't just go in complaining.
Right.
Here are some ideas, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, Mr. and Miss Supervisor. Here are some ideas that I think are a win-win for you, for the organization, for the team, and for me that I would love to implement. What do you think? Can we talk about?
Right. Do not come to me with just problems.
Exactly. If these are not solutions, help me understand why not. Don't just dismiss me. Help me understand why not. And then, okay, what would work? If my solutions won't work, what could work? Maybe we need to compromise and meet in the middle. What can we do? Right? So there's always further discussion. Any my way or the highway perspective is not going to be received well on anyone's perspective, right? And so again, if nothing else, at least take the time to explain to the other person why you're saying no.
No, exactly. And I feel like by utilizing this strategy, you can retain better talent. You can get more out of your workforce.
Yes, yes. So you get efficiency, productivity, the ROI on your investment from the person, goes up exponentially. I mean, it really is worth it. The time is worth it.
Absolutely. Julie, it was a pleasure having you.
Thanks.
What are some big things happening in 2026 you would love to end with?
So I am so honored to be traveling around the country doing some very large conferences and trainings and speaking opportunities. And I love giving back and, bringing some real solutions to the people that I get to spend time with and speak to. I love doing speaking and public engagements, trainings, and I love doing consultation. If you're curious as to how this stuff works, a lot of times Jordan will go to these big conferences and we'll be like, oh my gosh, that's great ideas. And then you're like, I'm definitely going to implement that at my practice. And then you get home and you're like, crap, how do I do that? How
Yeah.
do I do that in a way that's going to work for me? Right. And so much of this that we've talked today, this all sounds great. How do I implement this so it works for me? I'd love the opportunity to talk with anybody and help them out. But yeah, so I'm really, knock on wood. Another thing that's an important takeaway that I'm finding is people are out of COVID mode, meaning They don't necessarily want to have to do a ton of travel, but they love in person meetings again. They love in person events again, whether it's with clients, whether it's with your team, what have you. They enjoy getting out of the office and being together again. That is an important thing that I'm seeing as well.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're humans and we want connection, you know?
Absolutely. No doubt.
Julie, again, it was a pleasure having you. We'll go ahead and leave her contact details in addition to her website down in the show notes or on YouTube, the description. Audience, thanks
LinkedIn.
for tuning in.
I love go to my LinkedIn too, please.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jordan will Jordan will hook you up, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. Thank you guys. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.